Today, Jesus gives us a new perspective about faith. He tells us to value that aspect of faith that requires our waiting. We don't like to wait. We think it's dead time. We wait in traffic when there is a jam. We wait at grocery stores when there is a long line, and maybe we have a few things and the persons in front of us have so much to check. We wait at airports for flights that are delayed. We find it as dead time. But Jesus tells us today to value waiting and to look at the kind of waiting that's involved as a seed comes to new life. As a mustard seed, a small seed, bears fruit. There are a number of things about waiting in the life, in the existence of a seed. We see, first of all, that a seed is below ground. It is a reminder that there are many sufferings in life that we have, many moments in which we're waiting that involve not knowing what's happening. We're kept in the dark. We're waiting for a diagnosis after some test. Or maybe we're suffering from all sorts of different aches and pains, or maybe wounds that we wonder whether or not they're being healed. And of course, think of all the waiting that we did during the pandemic, waiting it for it to be over. It is like that hidden kind of growth that takes place, like a seed in the ground that's ready to break through its crusty outer core in order for new life to happen. And so we have to have that kind of faith that realizes that even though we can't see what's going on, there is something of God's purpose and plan and power working in our lives in hidden ways. And then we see the seed pop through the ground, spring through in a way that we see the first growth of leaves that come through the earth. It's a reminder that we should also have the kind of faith that allows us to see that God's plan for us comes at different moments and in ways that in fact are incremental. Sometimes we like to have everything all at once, but we know ourselves that in our lives with each other, in our relationships, sometimes we have to look for those signs of growth. I often think of parents, how maybe sometimes they're frustrated as they raise their children and whether or not they're hearing them, and then they see some real signs in which there is improvement. Or in marriage relationships, where after maybe a spat or two, the couple begins to see other qualities in each other that slowly come to the fore, in which they appreciate in each other. It is that kind of faith that recognizes that God's growth comes incrementally. Pope Francis has always said, we have to make sure that we're patient with that kind of grace that comes in God's life, from God's life to us. God's grace doesn't make us superhuman right away. It comes incrementally. And so we have to have the kind of faith that appreciates those small, incremental moments of growth. And finally, the seed bears much fruit in a tree. You know, a mustard tree can be as tall as 20 feet, and it has all sorts of medicinal qualities to it that in many ways surprise everyone who would see this small seed grow into something more. How often we have seen that happen as well, where people all of a sudden are surprised by how their prayer brought something more than they ever asked for. It's a kind of faith that is open to the fact that God wants to give us so much more sometimes than we ask for. I think of those couples that I have, or those people, young people that I have counseled over the years. Maybe their hearts are broken as their boyfriend or girlfriend leaves them and they're heartbroken. And then they find someone else who in fact seems to fit the bill much better for them, someone who is a better companion for life for them, and they rejoice in that. And so it's the kind of faith that allows us to be open to receive more from God than we ever asked for or expected. So today the Lord tells us not to be afraid of waiting, to think it's dead time when it comes to faith, to have the kind of faith in those moments of darkness when we can't see exactly what's going on, and hold on for dear life that God is with us. But also the faith that helps us celebrate those little moments of incremental grace that come into our lives in which we are allowed to continue the journey of faith, but also the kind of faith that rejoices when the Lord gives us so much more than we ever asked for, to be ever thankful with that kind of faith that the Lord is with us. Yes, all we need today is not faith that solves every problem. And today the Lord is just asking us to have that little bit of faith, that spark, even if it is as small as a mustard seed.